You know that feeling when you snag a budget graphics card off a deal site, only to discover a few weeks later that you're stuck tweaking settings just to get a playable frame rate? It's the kind of buyer's remorse that makes you question every impulse purchase. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I spent the last few weeks swapping my old 3060 for the MSI GeForce RTX 4070 Ti Super 16G Expert, and I'm here to tell you whether that price tag actually translates into a smarter buy or just another shiny piece of hardware that looks good on paper. First off, the hesitation most people have isn't about raw specs. Everyone can read 16 GB GDDR6X and feel impressed. The real worry is whether the card will slot into your existing rig without turning your setup into a heat haze nightmare, or whether you'll need a new power supply, a larger case, and a whole new cooling plan. I was in the same boat. My build is a mid-tower with a 650W PSU, a modest airflow configuration, and a 1440p monitor that can push 165 Hz. The question was, can the 4070 Ti Super live inside those constraints? Or am I just paying for a card that forces an expensive upgrade? The first thing I noticed after installing the card was the MSI patented fan design. It's not just a marketing phrase. Those twin fans spin up with a distinctive whir that feels purposeful, not noisy. In my daily gaming sessions, the card stayed under 70 dB even during intense raids in Destiny 2. The fan curve is aggressive enough to keep temperatures in the low 60s Celsius during a 4K benchmark, yet it backs off quickly when you're just browsing or watching YouTube. For people who run a mixed workload gaming, occasional streaming, and some light video editing, that balance of cooling and acoustic comfort matters more than a theoretical maximum boost clock. Port selection is another practical win. You get 3 DisplayPort 1.4a connectors and a single HDMI 2.1 output that comfortably handles 4K at 120 Hz with HDR, or even 8K at 60 Hz if you ever decide to upgrade your monitor. I ran a side-by-side test with a 1440p 165 Hz panel and a 4K 120 Hz TV. On the 1440p display, the RTX 4070 Ti Super delivered a consistently smooth 158 frames per second in Cyberpunk 2077 with DLSS 3 enabled well within the refresh envelope. When I switched to the 4K TV, the same game hovered around 70 frames per second, which is respectable for a first-time 4K experience without cranking the power settings to the max. If you're someone who wants a single card that can grow with you from high-refresh 1440p to entry-level 4K, the port flexibility and performance headroom are real advantages. Now let's talk power. The card's minimum system power requirement sits around 750W, which is higher than the average mid-range build. My 650W unit was already on the edge, so I upgraded to a 750W gold-rated PSU before the first boot. The power draw under load peaked at 320W, which is in line with what you'd expect from a 4070 Ti, but it does mean you need a quality supply with enough headroom for future upgrades. If you're on a tight budget or already have a lower wattage PSU, that extra cost could negate the value proposition. In short, the card is a great fit for anyone who already has a robust power budget or is planning a full system refresh. It's less suitable for those trying to squeeze performance out of an aging power supply. Physical size is another hidden trade-off. The Expert version is longer than many standard cards, measuring just under 12 inches and occupying 2 slots. It fits my case, but I had to rearrange a couple of front panel drives to clear the airflow path. If you're running a compact mini IDX chassis, you'll likely run into clearance issues, especially with the dual fan cooler. The card's weight also adds a bit of stress to the PCIe slot, so it's worth double-checking that your motherboard's slot brackets are sturdy. For builders who prioritize a clean, compact aesthetic, that could be a deal-breaker. One of the most enjoyable practical aspects for me was the built-in support for ray tracing and DLSS. In titles like Control and Metro Extraterrestrials, the RTX 4070 Ti Super handled ray-traced reflections and shadows at 1440p without dipping below 60 frames per second, something my older 3060 struggled with even at lower settings. DLSS 3's frame generation gave me an extra 20 to 30 frames per second boost in supported games, making the experience feel buttery smooth on my high-refresh monitor. If you're a fan of visual fidelity and want those cutting-edge effects without sacrificing performance, This card delivers where many budget alternatives fall short. On the flip side, the card's price tag remains a sticking point. While it's not the most expensive on the market, it sits in a sweet spot where the performance gain over a 3070 Ti isn't always enough to justify the cost for casual gamers. If you're primarily playing esports titles like Valorant or CS:GO, a lower-tier card will give you similar frame rates for a fraction of the price. The RTX 4070 Ti super shines when you need that extra horsepower for demanding AAA games or content creation workloads, but it